Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. I'm Jason Abrams, and this is the place where we lift the curtain on the world of real estate like never before. Every week, I sit down with visionaries, pirates, and mavericks. We're here to document, demonstrate, and most importantly, demystify their game-changing models and systems. What secrets propel them to the top? And how are they living their dreams? This is about passion, it's about strategy, but above all, it's about real, tangible success. So buckle up and let's dive in. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. Hey gang, this is an exciting show. This one is actually inspired by one of our listeners named Anook. Listen to what he asked.
Can we get some information on building an ISA team and how to train them? Specifically, steps to making the perfect ISA, how to train them to speak the lingo and use proper language when talking with clients to give us the best chance of landing them as a client.
I thought that question was so good. Like, it's so good because there's so many people out there that don't understand why they would want to have an inside sales agent. Then how to go find an inside sales agent. Then how to make the decision you have the right one to hire. Then how to train them. Then how to get them on the phone in a TCPA-friendly and compliant way. So I happen to know the expert. Friends, today you're going to hear from somebody who teaches courses just to ISAs about how to make them better. She's trained over 2,000 of them. She is an expert in precisely what they should say. You're going to learn how to hire, how to train, and how to get an ISA into production fast. Friends, sit back and buckle up. This is Anna Krueger. Anna, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you, Jason?
I am fantastic as well. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's a huge, huge honor.
So the honor's all ours. Tell me, and I ask the same question to everybody. I ask it in different ways, but with you, my dear, how did you find the greatest industry in the world?
Well, I would say it found me, which speaks to always be recruiting. But I had someone from my church, Haro. He approached me about working on his team, and I actually did not have a big interest, but I was like, I could use some practice interviewing. It's always good to network, so sure, I'll go on this interview. And several months later, I actually joined the team. So it was not what I was looking for, and it found me.
What were you doing prior to that?
Well, I was a high school teacher up in Baltimore, and then I left teaching politics as a lot of teachers.
Wait a second. You don't get to skip over being a high school teacher that quickly.
Yes.
Because I have fond memories of high school, none of which included class. What did you learn from being a high school teacher that you've brought into the real estate business?
Oh, man. It was more what I learned about myself, but I was very drawn to the kids that other teachers would call the difficult kids, which I hated that label. I was actually drawn to them. And now that I know more about myself and how I'm wired, it makes sense why. But I loved figuring out how can I get in their head and win them over. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Dangerous Minds. I'm kind of dating myself here, but that was one of my favorite movies growing up. And I loved that in that movie, she figured out how to get into the kids' heads and win them over and show them that anything's possible. So that was what I learned as a high school teacher is I love being around the ones that nobody seems to be able to reach and figuring out how can I reach them and make a difference. This is what I learned.
Extra points for a Coolio reference. Everyone loves A Gangster's Paradise.
Yes.
I would be added to your collection of Wayward Boys, that is for certain. So after high school teaching, what do you do next?
Yeah, so I went to a temp agency and basically I said, I need a job, any job will do, and I guarantee it'll make more than I did as a teacher. And I was really just looking for a placeholder. I was about 25 years old, just looking for a job. And they turned me into a college recruiter, which I was naive. I thought, ooh, this will be such a fun job. And I get to have the booth at the fair and, recruit students. And it was actually 100% an inside sales job. So I would respond to web leads. And then much like real estate, it's actually a lot like real estate, I would deal with leads that came inbound. And then I would set up meetings with them, work on enrolling them in school. And the biggest thing I learned there, Jason, is the university that I worked for There's a lot of rules around the Department of Education, and I'm saying this because it matters for people interested in hiring an ISA, an inside sales agent. But in the Department of Education at the time, and probably still today, they don't let you make commission in the Department of Education. So there's a lot of recruiters who are really excellent salespeople, but they have a ceiling because they're not allowed to make commission. But my salary could go up or down depending how many students I enrolled. So if I enrolled a lot of students, I would get a percentage increase every 6 months. So I was really motivated to enroll a lot of students. But here's the thing is if they did not pass their first class, they did not count. So I had to learn, it wasn't just enrolling them and getting all the paperwork done and all the financial aid. It was, I actually need to keep this person engaged and motivated enough that they pass their first class or all of the work up to this point won't count for anything, which taught me how to get really good at motivation.
Oh my gosh. I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, for all of our broker owner friends in the audience, if all of a sudden tomorrow you were only allowed to count the agents that actually sold a house, now how many do you have in your brokerage? Now how many do you have on your team? Because I got news for you. In order to get paid, they had to have success in the classroom, it sounds like, and you were not sitting next to them in the classroom.
No, and these were adults. Our school geared towards working adults. So these were working adults. Many of them had families and kids at home, lots of distraction. And now they're taking a grad level class or a master's level class after work in the evening. How do I keep that person engaged long enough that they pass their first class? So I used to give them a piece of paper and I would say, you're going to write a letter to yourself because you will have a day that you want to quit and you will be the best person to encourage yourself. So pretend that you want to quit today, write a letter to yourself, and at the bottom, I want you to tell me who you're inviting to your graduation. And what I was really trying to find out is who in this person's life matters to them, so that if they call and say, hey, I really want to quit today, who are the people I can reference? Like, hey, have you talked to George about this? You have them down on your graduation list. And then also I had all the words that they would need from their own mouth of how to keep them engaged.
I got to tell you, so my aha so far from this interview is that if I'm ever hiring an inside sales associate, I'm going directly to the college phone centers.
Yes, 100%. I've recruited a few into real estate and they are doing quite well. So yeah, I think college recruiters, there's not much else that mirrors the real estate industry so much because it's a long, difficult process, lots of paperwork, lots of money, and you have to know something about their motivation. I mean, it's very copy and paste to the real estate industry. So when I did get into real estate, it was like, well, I already know how to do this. I just need to learn the real estate language, but I already get the gist of this job.
So we're about to switch gears and we're going to unpack the ISA model.
Yeah.
How do I find an ISA? How do I get that person through an interview process? How do I get them functioning high level on a team? And most importantly, how do I raise my conversion rates? What are the conversation frameworks and how do I make that work? Before we do, I want to ask you a very simple question. Why an ISA? Pretend I'm a solo agent out there, or even I own a team, and our audience are the highest producing real estate agents in the world.
Yeah.
For the ones that don't have an ISA, make an argument for me. Why ISA?
Yeah. That's like saying, why should I have lifeblood in my business, right? I mean, the first thing Haro had me do was sit down and he literally said, here's a conference room. You're going to stay, like your one thing is to read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book before you do anything else. I want you to read it front to back. And when I read it, I read how Gary Keller talked about how lead generation is the lifeblood of your business. And I remember feeling honored thinking, Haro hired me to do the thing that's the lifeblood of the business. And I felt proud. I felt like, man, he must really trust me. And I also got context of, I'm going to be in the role on the team that keeps people employed. Like if we want operations, we need sales. If we want agents, we need sales. And obviously they are in sales as well. But when I read Millionaire Real Estate Agent, I realized lead generation and conversion to appointments, that is the first domino in everything else happening. So we need people in that role who are incredibly skilled. And that probably means it's their one thing. If they're going to be incredibly skilled, that might need to be the one thing they do all day. They're going to have more time on task. And the best ISAs should also be the best lead generators and converters in the whole business.
Okay, I love that. Well, so let's go at this because the next question that I get from everybody, is it an ISA? Is it an OSA? I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what the difference is.
Yeah. So I can tell you from being in another industry, ISA technically means inside sales agent. It means I deal with inbound leads. So if someone reaches out to me, that's an inbound lead. Outside sales in other industries, outside of real estate, refers to I'm going out and doing business development, where I'm going out to people that are unsuspecting. They're not expecting me to show up, and here I am. In real estate, I personally feel like ISA is just the term for the person who does lead generation full-time and lead conversion full-time. And that's how I use it. Some of it might be inbound, some of it might be outbound, and most of them do a mixture of both. But their one thing is talking to leads to convert them into appointments. That's their one thing.
Perfect. All right, friends, we are about to get into the model. Now, you don't have to take the notes. So if you're bombing down the freeway and you're in your Ferrari, I just got, by the way, congratulations to the agent in Ohio that bought the Ferrari. Awesome.
Oh.
If you're going 120 miles an hour, do not try to take the notes. We're doing that for you. And if you don't get them, they come out every Thursday. You can sign up at MREAnotes.com. That's MREAnotes.com. Secondly, we're about to have a conversation about phone calls. ISA means we're going to be talking to people. Needless to say, you need to keep yourself and your business safe, and we implore you to follow all the TCPA regulations and run your business the right way. And finally, we might be talking about buyers or sellers. It should be noted that all commissions are fully negotiable. Okay, let's get into this. I wake up tomorrow and I want to bring leverage into my life. I want to hire an ISA. What do I do first?
Yeah, first I would get very crystal clear on what you want them to do. And then I would reach out to the people you already know. So reach out to...
Well, hang on. I want to stay with what I want them to do.
Okay.
If I didn't know better, I would say, duh, I want him to be on the phone. But I bet you have something deeper than that in mind.
Yeah. Well, what I find as I coach a lot of real estate ISAs is they're in meetings all day. I just talked to an ISA the other day who we were working on her business plan. And she said, well, if I'm in all the agent meetings like I am now, I will work this many days this year. And if I'm not, she gained 10 weeks of time back by not being in meetings that I personally don't think she needs to be in. And so when I say get crystal clear on what you want them to do, it's get crystal clear on what lead sources do you want them to be working. It's probably the top 5 of your business already. And a lot of times the reason people hire an ISA is they realize we're not keeping up with our leads. So it's probably the lead sources you already have and you're not keeping up with them. But getting crystal clear, who are they going to be calling? What lead sources do we want them to be working? What meetings are they in? What meetings are they not in? And I will just tell you, our target is out of an 8-hour workday. The inside sales agent is active in lead conversion activities 6 out of 8 hours a day. And that gives 2 hours for a meeting and admin work and whatever else. But yeah, getting crystal clear on who they're calling, what they are and are not doing. A lot of ISAs are losing valuable, precious time, death by meeting is what I've learned.
Okay, by the way, it's not just ISAs with death by meeting, it turns out.
Yeah.
Okay, so get clear on what I want them to do. What's next? You said stick with my database. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I find, and this was true on Harlow's team, and it's true on a lot of teams I've interacted with, is usually their best talent comes from with people that already know and trust them, just like referrals for our business, buyers and sellers. And it's because the people that already know you, they know how you operate. They know the speed at which you run. They know your culture. They know a lot about you already. So they're going to be really good at helping to identify who would be a good fit for your culture and what you're looking to do.
And when you're looking to fill roles, because there are some roles that are wildly glamorous, and there are other roles that maybe don't sound as glamorous. And one of the knocks on the ISA role is there's a unique human that wants to be on the phone all day.
Yeah.
So if you were reaching out to the people in your database for this opportunity, what would you say to them?
And also, I want to say, I think there's a unique human that wants to drive around and show buyers all day and answer contracts on a Sunday afternoon. So as much as people think, why would you ever want to be an ISA? I think, why would you ever want to be an agent? And that's why we make a beautiful team.
That's so good.
There are people that love real estate and they do not want the real estate schedule. And that was me. I want to dispel the belief that these people are really hard to find. They're not that hard to find. I think if your mindset is they're hard to find, they're going to be hard to find because you're going to exude that as you interact with people. There are people that would love this opportunity within your team, and they would love to have a regular schedule, which is the beautiful thing of an ISA. So if I'm reaching back to your original question, if I'm reaching out to my database, I would probably say something like, who do you know that may not be looking for an opportunity? They may already be employed, that they are going to have a stellar year next year because it's just who they are. That's just the type of person they are. Whatever they put their hand to, it's going to be excellent. And they love talking to people and they like a challenge. Like, who fits that description?
Guys, you got me excited about it. I'm like, that's me. You're describing me.
Well, come work with me, Jason.
I'm in. I'm so in.
All right, recruit by podcast. That's the theme.
By the way, recruit any way you need to. But I love that. Okay, so I'm going to start with my database. If I'm unable to find my talent fit there, where do you think the best place to post a job ad for this is?
Yeah, I hear of a lot of teams who find people on Indeed, and you just have to recognize you're going to need to go through a lot more resumes to find the person. It's just like in your real estate business. If I reach out to people I already know, I don't need as many contacts to find somebody that will do business with me. If I am reaching out to people I don't know, I'm going to need a higher volume. So it's the same thing. Indeed is a common place that I hear the most often. And then also don't forget, database also means vendors. So your vendors, like your attorneys, appraisers, all the people that interact in a transaction with you, they have an interest in you succeeding. So don't forget also to reach out to them.
Okay, so now I have applicants that have come in, and I'm going to now need to get into an interview process. Is there anything unique about interviewing with an ISA that might be different than interviewing with a different role?
Yeah. Well, what I like to do, because I need somebody who is detail oriented, because they're going to have tasks to follow up with. I do not need somebody really bad at keeping up with tasks. So what I like to do is start with an automated email that says, thank you for your interest, depending on how they come into me, of course. But they're going to get an email that gives them some instructions. And that instruction is going to be to call me and leave me a voicemail and tell me a little bit about yourself. And what I'm looking for is, one, do they do it? Because especially with Indeed, that'll eliminate a lot of people right there because they're not going to do it. And that helps narrow the pool of resumes that I just got. And then I'm looking for what's their energy like on the phone. And I want to hear that in a voicemail. So that would be a step I would take early in that interview process. And it sounds like a Hallmark card what I'm about to say, but it is really what you need because this is a phone sales job. This is not customer service. A lot of people think this is a customer service role. It is 100% not a customer service role. It is a sales role. And so what I'm looking for is someone who does it quickly because that shows like a go get it attitude. And I'm looking for someone, and this is the Hallmark part, they feel like a friend over the phone. So like their tonality, the way they show up on that voicemail or when talking to them on the phone, I just feel like, I just like this person. That's what I'm looking for.
We know people do business with people they like. And if you're going to spend your time on the phone, you better sound good and be likable.
Yes. Haro used to tell me, be funny, make money.
He's right, by the way.
It's true.
It's great. Okay, so I've decided on what I want them to do, and I've gotten clear on how I'm going to manage their time. I then looked for talent, and I did that both in my database and on Indeed or WiseHire, any of the other job board sites. I then started to get applicants, and I weeded through them by sending them an email and asking them to leave me a voicemail so that I could close my eyes and just say, does this sound right? What do I do next?
Yeah. So I would say respond to everybody that did the voicemail thing. Not everybody, because you need to do that. And then I would invite the ones that I really connected with into the interview process. And I would follow the career visioning process. I mean, it's a system for a reason and it works. I would follow that.
For those of you, we have listeners from every different real estate company. If you're not familiar with the career visioning process, that's a course that is taught at Keller Williams. And the concept here is that everybody has a natural personality tendency. And we use a personality assessment to open up conversations so we can get to the real stuff faster to find out who they are, how they're going to show up in the workplace, and ultimately, how can we help them maximize their potential so when they help us get the things we want, they in turn can get the things that they want.
Yeah. And it's rewarding. I remember when Haro took me through that process, I thought, how does he know more about me than most, even of my closest friends? And we've spent maybe 8 hours together over the course of several weeks, of course. But it's a confidence builder too, because by the time he offered me the role, I thought he has interviewed me enough that if he's offering me this role, that means he believes I can do it. And that gave me confidence. And it's so much better than a quick 1-hour interview that a lot of people do. Even if that, I find so much value in that process.
Got it. So if I'm looking to bring on and have one good ISA, should I be making one hire, or am I hiring more than one knowing that 2 or 3 aren't going to make it? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen different things work. I'm a fan of hire 2, and it is a little more risky because that's, you have to have you got to evaluate your finances when you do that and decide your risk tolerance, and that's going to be individual for each person. But if you hire 2, the worst that'll happen is you'll have 2 that both succeed and now they're making you money. So that helps mitigate that risk, because if they actually are successful, you'll just make money faster. And the benefit of 2 is they can spur each other on to success. They have a buddy. They're not alone in the role. A lot of people can feel lonely in this role. I felt that, quite frankly. So when there's 2 of them, it helps mitigate that.
Love it. Okay, so I go through the process. I pick the one that I like. I have an incredible winner. They think that I'm awesome also. How do I onboard them and get them doing the activity that matters most?
Yes. I think first, for the person doing the hiring, get crystal clear again on what activity matters most, because I see a lot of people waste a lot of time doing stuff that really ISAs don't need to be involved with. So what I personally would recommend is have them very early in the process, not only shadow agents to see what agents are doing, but Jason, when I first hired ISAs, I had them shadow a lot. And then they would still seem confused as to where does my job end and where does the agent's job begin? Because there is a handoff. And I would think, how do you still not know? We've talked about this a million times, but clearly I'm not communicating this well. So I implemented a training where, okay, Jason, I just hired you. You are a buyer. So for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to do a buyer presentation with you. And the whole time, we don't know each other and we don't work together. So if you have a question, write it down, but don't ask. I'm not breaking role, and neither are you. I'm a buyer agent. You are a buyer client. And I want you to think about, if you were to buy a house right now, what house would you want it to be? Because I want you to feel as much as possible that you actually are a buyer today as you meet with me. And I found taking them through the actual buyer presentation, and then again, same thing on the seller side. You're a seller. The house you live in today, you're going to sell it. You actually are selling it. Let's pretend, and go through that process. That's when I saw the light bulb click of, oh, okay, now I get it. So, and even before that, Jason, I would call and pre-qualify them before the appointment. I failed to say that. So I would call and pre-qualify them. I made them go in the other room so we couldn't see each other. This needs to be as realistic as possible. Call, pre-qualify to model exactly what I want them to do, and then doing the presentation. And that seemed to be the thing that made it click of, okay, now I understand what I'm doing and what you're doing. Because a lot of ISAs over-explain on the phone. And then why would I meet with the team? You already answered all my questions. So they need to be very clear on where does my job end and where does yours begin.
Well, this then brings up this conversation around conversation frameworks and structure. And so you're fanatical, if I may, on conversion. You're very purposeful about your words when you're talking to buyers and sellers. How do you help somebody understand the conversation tracks without them sounding like mindless automatons?
Yeah, I love that. I've never been called fanatical before. Thank you. So I would say when someone feels like a robot, it simply means they haven't deeply studied to understand how to navigate a conversation. I know for me, I feel like a robot when I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, because I'm not focused on the conversation. I'm focused on what am I going to do next? I don't know what I'm doing. So one, it's getting really crystal clear on where is this conversation headed. And I think there's 4 main parts to a conversation. And when you have that in your head, that is going to help you walk through this conversation seamlessly. And I'm really big into language patterns. And what I like about a language pattern is it's the science of how to talk to people, but it gives you freedom to be yourself. So here's how to talk to people, put it in your own words. And so when you have the 4 parts of a conversation, and then you have some frameworks for how do I talk to people, but I'm going to be myself while I do it, as you start to really understand those things, you just are yourself talking to people. But that does not happen overnight. That takes time and intentionality.
Okay, well, then the next step, by the way, is have the conversation. So walk me through the 4 parts of the conversation.
Yeah, so number 1 is motivation. And I've had people disagree with me on this, and I will never change my mind. And it's because Motivation. I mean, read Gary Keller's book, read Shift as well. Both books talk so much about how motivation is the driving force for everything. And I've heard people say, well, set the appointment and then get motivation. But the thing is, I'm sure you've heard this. I don't know who said it, but you are losing so slowly that you think you're winning. And that's how I view if you set it and then get motivation, because you might set enough that you feel like, oh, I'm good at setting appointments. But how many could you have set if you got motivation first? So just like anything, if I'm reminded why I'm doing something, I'm a lot more likely to get into the activity. I do not enjoy going to the gym. It's something I'm constantly working on. I feel like my health is like a constant thing I'm working on. And if somebody came to my house at 5 a.m. and said, Anna, let's get up. We're going to go make your muscles hurt. You're going to sweat. You're going to ache tomorrow because of the work we're going to do today. Let's go. I'm going to say, get out of my house. I don't want you here. What are you doing? But if someone came to me and said, hey, Anna, you have really specific goals. You want to look fantastic in the dress at the wedding in October. You want to go hiking in Colorado. They listed off the things that I want to do and then said, let's go to the gym. Totally different experience. Now I'm engaged. And it's the same thing with our clients. Moving is hard work. Why in the world would I want to do that? And why would I agree to move forward with you if we're not first talking about my motivation? If you do not get that first, really the only people you'll set are people that have to move, and they would move anyway. Most people do not have to move.
Okay, well, let's stay on number one then for just another moment on motivation. What are the one or two things that I can say to uncover motivation?
Yeah, moving is a lot of work. What makes you want to move?
It's so good, right? That's great. I love that. And then depending on the answer that they give, I now know what's motivating them. Is that right?
Yeah. And I believe in taking that 3 more questions deep. So 3 questions deep is like the magic. You're usually really getting into motivation now. So for example, if someone said, I want to downsize, that is not actually motivation. So I would say, what makes you want to downsize? Or how will it benefit you to downsize? And I'm going to keep going down that train long enough until I've asked at least 3 follow-up questions. So if they say I want to downsize because my house is too big, okay, well, how's it affecting you that your house is too big? And I might find out that they would love to retire, but they can't because they have this big mortgage and now all their kids have moved out. So if I downsize, I can actually retire. That's motivation. That's actually the thing that would make them move. So it's an initial question like, moving's a lot of work. What makes you want to do that? And then the follow-ups.
Love that. Okay, I think I understand motivation. What comes next?
Then we pre-screen. So this is the logical part that agents are really good at, especially. And it's all the questions like, when do you want to be there? What's your budget? Are we paying cash? Are you getting a loan? Are you already working with an agent? You know, we're going down all of the logistics. Who are all the decision makers? And if they're a seller, I'm going to ask them a lot of financial questions about what they need to be happy at the end of this transaction. And the goal here is really to help me understand what's the game plan. You know, and part of pre-screening is on a scale of 0 to 10, how motivated are you to get all the things you just told me about? Because I want to make sure I didn't misread or misjudge how excited or not excited they are about this. So it's really all the pre-screening stuff with the logistics.
And are you, after you collect the raw information, are you then parroting it back to them to make sure that you have understanding?
Yes, definitely. And not every single word, but the key phrases. So when, even to this day, and I've been doing this now since 2006, when I got into the college recruiting role, I have pieces of paper. And when I talk to people, I am actually graphing out the conversation so that I have their actual words. Because when I use their words, it lets them know I was listening and it builds rapport even subconsciously. So yeah, if somebody said, I want a smaller home, I would say smaller home, not downsize. It means the same thing, but I want to say their exact words back to them. So as we're going, I'm writing down what they're saying. I'm writing down all the logistics that they're saying, and I'm repeating back key important things, especially the motivation-oriented things.
Got it. So motivation, then pre-screen. So now I know why they want to do it. And now I've got all the details around how they want to accomplish it and what they want to get done. What do I do next?
Yeah. So the third part of a conversation is literally the words, your next step is, or it might be our next step is, depending on whatever it is. What my favorite one is, Jason, is our next step is to meet together and we're going to do 3 things. And I'll tell you the 3 things in just a moment. But it could also be your next step is to talk with a lender and find out what you are pre-approved for. Or your next step is to talk with your spouse tonight and see what they think about moving. Because maybe they're really excited, but I haven't talked to my husband about this yet. Okay, great. Your next step is to talk with your husband tonight And then the fourth step, which you haven't asked, but they really go together, is, so number 3 is your next step is. Number 4 is the deadline for it. So we need the deadline to be within 48 hours. So Jason, your next step is to talk with a lender. And then number 4, by when will you talk to a lender and let me know what they said? And today, let's say today's Wednesday, I'm going to want you to call me back by Friday. And now I'm telling you this, Jason, I wouldn't tell the lead that. But
Sure.
My goal is that by the time we hang up, we've agreed we're going to communicate no later than Friday. We just know that if it goes beyond 48 hours, that deadline, they're not as likely to do it. It drops off significantly.
So I want to push back on all of this because from what I can tell, there seems to be 2 schools of thought.
Yeah.
Which is, number 1, I want my ISAs to have as quick a conversation as I can to set the appointment as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I want my ISAs to build depth, which is what you're doing here, slow it down until the meeting that we have is actually meaningful. Mm-hmm. Am I understanding that the right way? And why do you argue for your method?
100%. Well, part of it's the results. Like the results speak for themselves. And then the second piece is I, by nature, am a very quick, fast-paced person. I don't, let's just get to the point and move on, which makes me sound really wonderful as I say that out loud. But what I learned, because I tried it the other way, fast conversations at the appointment. And what I had to tell myself is I would rather have a longer conversation for a faster result. And what I learned was when I had short conversations, it took forever to get actual results. But longer conversations on the front end led to quicker results. So to me, a long conversation is the fastest method.
I guess then the question becomes is what's the result that you're looking for? Because as I've interviewed more and more top teams, I see one of 3 challenges for each one. Either number 1, they simply don't have enough appointments set. Number 2, they have plenty of appointments set, but they don't actually end up happening.
Yeah.
Or the dreaded number 3, we don't have enough appointments and there's not enough happening.
Right.
Are you striving and are you grading your ISAs on the number of appointments they're setting, the number of appointments that actually end up happening, or the number of appointments that happen that end in a document that is signed?
Yes. Well, here's what I would say is I'm looking for quality. So there's a team I was coaching that they were setting a huge amount of appointments, it was close to 100 a week of appointments, but they were having a lot of problems with trust between the ISAs and the agents because a lot of those appointments weren't showing. And so that was creating a trust breakdown and the agents weren't glad to have the ISAs and the ISAs were frustrated and there was all this tension. And so I told them, I said, basically what I just talked about on this podcast is I want you to slow your conversations down and go deeper and you will set less. And everyone's probably going to freak out because you're going to set less appointments and everybody's going to be like, oh no, what's going to happen? And you will actually have more clients this way. And that is exactly what happened. So they had a significant drop in the number of appointments set, but they actually netted more signed clients at the end of the month with less appointments set. So I don't really care how many appointments you set. What I care is how many are actually showing up and then hiring the team. We don't get paid for appointments showing up. We get paid, and we also help families when they close on a house. So I'm getting very passionate if you can't tell. But you go to these conferences and you hear people talk about how many appointments they set. And that is a good measure to look at. But what I'm really interested in is what is your percentage? Because percentage shows skill. It's not number, it's percentage. So what percentage actually showed up and what percentage actually signed, that's the mark of a good ISA.
Okay, well then let's get into the math for a few minutes because up to this point, we're now got our people on the phone. And what I'd like to have, if I'm out there in the realtor multiverse, is some frame of reference on how my team compares to others, or if I'm making this higher, what should I be striving for? You said earlier that in an 8-hour day, I'm looking for 6 hours of generated lead generation time. What should be accomplished during those 6 hours? And it's always going to depend on lead source. I get it. Yeah. So walk me through a couple of different lead sources and some numbers so I have some frame of reference.
Yeah, I love this question. So I'll tell you what we see in a normal market, which depending on where you're located is not what most of us are experiencing right now. In a normal market, 1 out of 20 contacts will turn into an appointment. And that means, to be crystal clear, an appointment means I know I'm meeting with you to potentially hire you. It's not a follow-up call. It's not I'm showing you a house. It's, are we going to work together on the buy or sell of this house?
This isn't just me calling my database and getting one of 20. This must be for incoming leads that were generated, I'm guessing, through internet or open house?
Yeah, internet, open house. When we look at this metric, we usually consider that people are working an average of about 5 lead sources, and some will convert less and some will convert higher. And when you shake it all together, 5% is the average that comes out. So one lead source might convert at 8 and one lead source might convert at 3. But if I'm working an average of 5 lead sources, I will usually set 1 out of 20 if I'm an average ISA or agent for that matter. The metric doesn't change ISA or agent.
Okay, 1 out of every 20 real conversations I have will result in a real appointment where there is a real chance I get hired. Is that right?
Yep. And that's 5%. What I will say, Jason, is I've been polling different people informally, but I've been asking people that I know, like, hey, what are you seeing right now? And I've just been asking everybody this question in today's market. I'm seeing it closer to 3.5% to 4% because of the market that we're in. So I would say anywhere from 3.5% to 5% is the average range, depending on your skill and your lead sources. And higher is better. But that's about what we're seeing.
And in a 6-hour day, because of the length of the conversations, how many conversations am I actually looking at? Is it realistic to be doing 20 in a day, or is it 40 in a day, or 60? You tell me.
Yeah, common for an inside sales agent is 40. For me, I think when people are new, you tell them, here's what we expect of you, because they need some guidance on what it takes to be successful. So if I'm hiring a new inside sales agent, I would say 40 contacts a day is the standard, and that is doable. We see people hit it. However, once they've been in the role and we've been tracking, we need to be tracking results. I'm going to get to the point where we sit down and we do some business planning for them of how much money they want to make. And we backwards into, well, how many contacts a day is that for you? So 40 is very reasonable. A lot of ISAs hit that number. And then once they do their business planning for themselves with their own personal financial goal, that number might change. My number was 36. And Jason, it was very doable. That's 6 people an hour, 6 hours a day.
And is it realistic then you're looking for 2 appointments?
I personally was, yeah. Most ISAs, their metric is 1 a day minimum. Like if you're not hitting 1 a day, we may not be the right fit for the role because the role is to set appointments. 2 seems to be what a lot of ISAs actually strive for their income goal. So 1 to 2. And like you said at the beginning, a lot of this will depend on lead sources, how long they've been in the role. You know, when Haro hired me, he said it'll take you 90 days to get up to speed. I love a challenge. And so I thought, I've trained this role in another industry. I'm going to beat it. Nope. It took me 90 days to be consistent. I was like, 1, here and there. And by the time I hit 90 day, I started 1 a day consistently and then ultimately got to 2 a day consistently.
Okay, let's talk about the math of money. So,
yeah.
And I know it's going to be different all over the country, but give me some general rules of thumb. Are these salaried position? Is this salary plus bonus? And can you give me any kind of guidance on the numbers?
Yeah, so it's salary plus commission is the best process we've seen. And here, I'll use myself as an example. When Haro first hired me, remember, it was a very last minute thing because I got laid off of a job. And so he hired me pretty quick. I was not yet licensed. And in the state where I live, that was legally fine for me to do certain things on the phone. So I was salary when I first started. I was very motivated, though, to get licensed because then he could pay me commission. And what I'll tell you, Jason, is as soon as I had commission on the line, and it wasn't a bonus of it's the same number every time you have a closing, because it was commission, I was very motivated to get strategic because I thought, well, if I'm going to have a closing, why not have it be a $750,000 house instead of a $300,000 house?
Amen.
So what I love about the salary plus commission is it's lower risk for the team. There is a risk because you're paying a salary. But when you do a bonus structure for like setting an appointment, you're just going to get appointments all day. And I coach this, Jason. I see it all the time. Teams that do salary plus bonus, overall, I'm sure there's some exceptions out there, but overall, you will get people setting appointments because they want that bonus and they may or may not actually be a good one. But when they're motivated that I get paid when there is a closing, which is commission, quality goes up. We've seen price points go up. My price point went way up as soon as I started getting commission because I was motivated.
Well, then give me an idea. If I'm out there and I'm thinking about making the hire, what's the salary and what's the commission?
Yeah. So I usually see salary anywhere from $24,000, which is on the low end, to $40,000. And I think a lot of that just depends on where you live. California obviously has a much higher cost of living than where I live in South Carolina. But here's the main picture with salary is it needs to be low enough that they're not going to pay all their bills off of it. Because that's another challenge I've seen coaching ISAs is when they're comfortable on salary alone, we struggle with performance. Again, generally speaking, there's always exceptions. And then for commission, we usually see anywhere from 5 to 10% of whatever the team earns.
Okay. That is perfect. Last question for me, because now they're on the phone and they're using the 4 steps of the conversation. They're being rewarded on commission. We're all in alignment. Let's talk about accountability, because you just walked me through the math, and making sure people are accountable helps them maximize their potential. So can you walk me through, how do I hold my ISA accountable, and what should that conversation look like, and how often should it happen?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what Haro did with me because it worked, and I think it was a great model. But he met with me once a week, and we would do a 411 conversation where we went through what my weekly goal was in light of my monthly goal. And I knew each week whether I needed to adjust the following week's activities based on my results. So if I'm behind this week, I already know next week I might need to, I definitely need to change my activities and increase to make up for the gap. So it was a once a week check-in. And then visual goals are hugely helpful. So on the wall right in front of where I worked, my goal was to set 10 appointments a week. Don't everybody hear this and think that's what everybody's goal should be. That was highly personalized to me and my financial goals. But in front of me each week, I had a countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And every time I set an appointment, I wrote the last name over a number. And I had a visual countdown in front of me. And what that meant is anyone that I worked with could walk into my physical workspace and see where I was compared to my goal. That's high accountability because everybody can see it. And yeah, I would say those 2 things, the visual goal plus the weekly meeting, was hugely helpful. And then I will also say that the agents need accountability to the ISA as well, to communicate to the ISA. The biggest challenge I see with the ISA role is you're hiring someone who's highly motivated and results oriented. That is the personality of someone doing well in this role. Well, if you're highly motivated by results, but part of your job is to hand off a lead, if you don't find out what happens to that lead, you're not going to stay in the role. So there also needs to be some accountability where the agents are reporting back to the ISA of what happened. That's another piece.
Makes perfect sense to me. All right, I want to switch gears. I want to tell you a real estate story. If you go all the way back to ancient Athens, there was this great person named Epicurus, and he was a philosopher of his day. And instead of talking to large groups, he bought an awesome villa in downtown Athens, and he invited small groups over to talk about the secrets of life, and it became known as Epicurus's Garden. We'd like you to join us in our garden as we switch gears. Will you join us?
I would love to. That sounds fun.
Okay, first question. You clearly form relationships with the people that you're talking to over the phone. Then you pass them off and somebody else goes and lives a deep relationship with them. They're in the car with them. They're at the houses. They're doing all the things. Is there any part of you that longs for deeper connection with the people that you talk to once you hand them off?
Oh, absolutely. And the way that I mitigate that, Jason, is I do follow up with them. How's it going? How is it going with Tim? Tell me what's happening. But I also realized my actual client, and I don't mean this in reality, but the way I had to think about it, is the agents. Because I realized, this might just be super personal to me in the way I'm wired, but I realized the people that I'm going to see the impact on is the agents more than even the clients, because I don't talk to them long term. So I went around and I asked all the agents I worked with, what would it mean to you to have more closings? And I wanted to find out their motivation. And I know not everybody on the podcast couldn't see this, but what I'm going to show Jason is I still have the piece of paper from 2013 when I got in real estate. This has agent motivation on it. I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I would look at that and I would ask them like, hey, how's it going with the goal you told me about? I understood my work was fueling the agent's success, and I wanted to see them succeed. And that helped me a lot with that handoff because it was tough to pass them over.
I think that's really special. Talk to me about rejection. I once asked a girl to a dance, and she said no. By the way, I'm still shocked today.
What was she thinking?
I don't know. I'm in treatment. We just talked about this last week with the therapist, and I was 9. But here's the point. It was tough. I'm still talking. I'm 45 now. If you're an ISA, you're getting a lot of rejection.
Oh, yeah.
How are you handling that? And what do you tell yourself about the word no or leave me alone or the ones that just hang up on you?
Yeah, lots of therapy, Jason. No, but I played it out once and I thought, what's the worst that would happen? If this person rejects me, what's the worst that could possibly happen? And by the way, I experienced some of it because I had some really rude people on the phone who would cuss me out and hang up on me and all this. One day I just asked myself, if I were to go to the grocery store right now and this person ended up in line behind me, would we even know that we were the two that just had this awkward conversation on the phone? And I realized nobody would even know. And it made me realize it's just really not that big of a deal. And I started finding humor in it. One day somebody called me a curse word on the phone, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say on a podcast, but I said to them, I said, oh, really? I didn't know I was one of those. And I kind of laughed about it and they hung up on me. But just finding the humor in it. And honestly, a lot of it came too from the relationships outside of work, you know. But Haro also taught me it takes 20 conversations to set an appointment. And I had a list, literally a numbered list, 1 through 20, beside me when I worked. And I would write down the names of every person who picked up the phone, even the ones who were like, oh, I'm not interested, bye. Okay, writing the name down. And I would get excited as the list got longer because I knew by 20, I'll probably have one. So it totally reframed, like, great. I'm actually glad that was a short conversation because I just got closer to 20 really fast. So it really helped.
You know, I've heard that before. Ben Kinney, if you haven't listened to his episode of this show, go back and listen because he tells the story that where he would number on a sheet of paper 1 to 100 and he would simply track his conversations each day. And for him, by the time he got to 56, he had an appointment. So he knew he was going to set a listing appointment for himself every day. That's how it all started.
Yes.
The ISA world, you're in a room on a phone, you're 6 hours. I want to talk about it from a health journey perspective because that's a tough life. It's a lot of sitting, it's sedentary. And I know you're a hiker by hobby. How do you blend that into an active lifestyle?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, it's accountability. And it is something I struggle with. Like my health, I would say, is the biggest category of life that I am working on improving. And for me, with my personality, it's local accountability with people in person. So it's having the local gym partner that I meet, and it has to be in the morning before the workday starts because otherwise I won't do it. So it's a usually 5:30, 6 a.m. start of meeting somebody. And that really helps. And then also having a stand-up desk helps. I have one right now as I'm talking to you. It's a stand-up desk, and just moving like that helps to just not actually be sitting all day. But I would say with rejection and health, for me, a lot of it comes from the outside of that 6-hour window of being really intentional about scheduling it in.
You said something that I thought was brilliant. You said they love real estate, but they don't love the schedule of real estate. And I'm sitting here listening to you, and I think I could be an ISA and live anywhere in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And still be tied to an incredible financial opportunity. And I don't know, and I'm questioning myself. I don't know why I've been thinking it's somehow less than. It might be one of the coolest opportunities the industry has to offer.
Oh, yeah. Jason, I was coaching a rainmaker who said to me, and he said, I don't tell everybody this, but my actual goal is to be the ISA of our team. It's like my dream role because of what you just said, the flexibility. And Jason, I love it. I went to South Africa for a total of 5 weeks last year. And you know why I could do that? Because I can work from anywhere. And I think I do not know why within this industry specifically, the ISA role seems to have like a lesser than view. I don't find that in other industries because I've worked in other industries. Somehow that seems to be a thing in the real estate industry. And I would love to be an agent of change for that because there are a lot of incredibly talented people that love real estate. They want to set schedule and they want to be able to work from anywhere. What's beautiful when you have commission is it is unlimited earning potential. So if you make more money, they make more money. Why would you not want that?
You would want it. Friends, I always say you love this show because you're a journeyer, and I'm on a journey also. Anna, you've opened my eyes to a whole new destination today because I'll be honest with you, when I started to do the research for this show a couple of weeks ago, I was 100% sure I wanted to talk about why a team or an individual would hire an ISA. And here's what I learned today. That model we unpacked, it's beautiful. This turned out to be a podcast about why you might want to be an ISA. Because here's the reality, is that somebody else out there is going to listen to you today and realize there's an opportunity for them to live all their wildest dreams. And they need a team owner or an individual agent to hire them to do it. And when this thing comes together, It's absolutely beautiful.
Yes. You could not pay me enough, Jason, to be an agent. And I mean that sincerely. Maybe $5 million, I would do it. But,
by the way, this is how I feel about being a painter. If someone said to me, all you got to do is paint the house, you get $1 million, I'd say I can't make it.
Yeah. But yes, there are a lot of really talented people who would jump at this opportunity. And I will tell you, I don't want to be Miss Pollyanna here. There are days where I wanted to beat my head against the wall. Like, I cannot make one more phone call today. But then I would think of my grandpa. My grandpa used to be a park ranger. And you know, part of the job of a park ranger, you know, the porta potties out in the middle of the woods, he has to clean those out. And I would think to myself, I don't feel like making calls today, but you know what I'm not doing is scooping poop out of a porta potty in the woods. And I'm making a whole lot more money than my grandpa. So I'm not saying it's the most fun role all the time, always. I do think when you get good at building relationships with your clients, I started to feel like I'm coming to work and calling my friends. And they happen to be people that will become buyers and sellers because I've been following up with them for 6 months. But even on a bad day when I don't want to do it, I would think of all the other things I could be doing with less flexibility and a lot less money, and it helped that perspective. So it's a lot in how you think about it.
There it is. Anna, you're a teacher at heart, and it's absolutely awesome. Thank you for everything you're doing for the industry.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason. It's a huge honor. So thank you for inviting me here today.
Now, it's so obvious, right, why I was so excited about this show. She gets it. She gets it at the only deepest levels possible, coming from having done it for as long as she has. She did it in the college industry, and then she did it in the real estate industry. The argument that she makes for an ISA is one that I can't break. This is the lifeblood for your business. Asking the question, do you want more people in your database to be contacted more often by someone who is trained and excels at knowing precisely what to say? I can't break that argument. That's a no-brainer for all of us. And then she broke it down so simply. Number one, I have to find the right person. And then I have to get them on the phone in a TCPA-friendly and compliant way. And once they're on the phone, they have to help the consumer uncover their motivation. Why is it that you're moving? Then we got to do some pre-screening. And this is this thing the real estate agents excel at. Are you buying with cash? Are you financing? Where do you want to live? Why do you want to live there? What's your time frame? Help me understand the perfect home, or help me understand why you're selling the home that you're in. And then, of course, the most famous lines in real estate. Your next step is. And then her final step. Your next step is blank within blank period of time, designed to keep the process moving. Here's what's clear to me. Anna is an expert. She wakes up every day living a professional life of being an inside sales agent. If you're trying to make the decision of whether or not you want to bring some leverage into your life, consider bringing in this kind of leverage. Because here's the thing. You might not wake up every day dying to call people and talk to them. But let me assure you, there's a group of humans that do. As a matter of fact, for them, this is the dream job. They want to get up and get on the telephone. They want to get to know people and help them move forward in life. And most importantly, they want to do it with the kind of work hours that allows them to have some delineation between their work life and their home life. And I think that what she said was so wise, which is they love real estate. They might just not love the hours associated with it. Friends, I think she's a genius. Go forth and do likewise. There it is. That wraps another episode. Friends, I don't know what you're taking out of this. I really don't. I'll tell you what I want you to be taking out of it, which is these are the people that are having tremendously big lives. And the reason it's happening is because they're setting up the models and systems to do just that. Gary Keller told me that leadership is teaching people how to think so that they do the things they need to do when they need to do them, so that ultimately they get the things they want when they want to have them. And that's what I want for you. You're all leaders, but it begins with leading ourselves. If you're enjoying this podcast, I want you to click the subscribe button anywhere that you get your podcasts. We want to be the voice in your head every single week. And every week, we're dropping new content. We also send out a newsletter at the conclusion of every show to make sure that you get the highest points and the models and systems that were discussed. So if you want to sign up, I need your name and your email address. Head over to the millionaireagentpodcast.com. millionaireagentpodcast.com. Enter your name and your email address, and every week, that newsletter will be in your box. Friends, you just went on a journey. I hope that what happens between now and the next time we meet is absolutely wonderful for you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information. Warning: you must comply with the TCPA and any other federal, state, or local laws, including for B2B calls and texts. Never call or text a number on any do not call list, and do not use an auto dialer or artificial voice or pre-recorded messages without proper consent. Contact your attorney to ensure your compliance.